Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My wife tried to rewrite my will to favor my spoiled daughter without my knowledge. I found out and took immediate action. This might seem like just another family drama, but it's one I never imagined I'd be sharing. When you've been married for nearly 30 years, you think you know someone inside and out. You think you've built a life together on trust and shared values. But what happens when that foundation cracks, and you realize the person you thought you knew might not be who they seem? That's exactly where I found myself. So here goes. I'm Dean, 58 years old, and I've spent my entire life building something I could be proud of. I grew up with nothing. My dad worked long hours in a factory, and my mom picked up whatever odd job she could find, cleaning houses, sewing, you name it. We lived paycheck to paycheck, and there were plenty of times we barely made it. I still remember being 10 years old, sitting in my bedroom while my parents argued in the kitchen about which bills they could afford to pay that month. Mom's voice was tight and tired. "Paul, we can't put off the electric bill again." And my dad, sounding defeated, would say, "I know, but if we don't pay the gas, we won't have heat." That left a mark on me. Right then, I promised myself that when I grew up, I'd never live like that again. I worked hard. I started picking up part-time jobs while I was still in high school, stocking shelves at the grocery store, mowing lawns, whatever paid. After graduation, I went into construction, working for a crew that did home remodels. I learned everything I could, from pouring concrete to framing walls to finishing drywall. Eventually, I started my own business in home renovations. It wasn't easy. There were months where I wasn't sure if the company would survive. I can still remember sitting at the kitchen table at midnight, studying bank statements, wondering how I'd pay my crew. But I kept pushing. Now, decades later, I have a comfortable life, a nice home, and enough saved up to retire in a few years if I choose. I married Lana when I was 30. Back then, I thought she was perfect, smart, loving, supportive. We had 3 kids together: Mark, now 32, Hazel, 29, and Stacy, 25. Mark and Hazel, they're the kind of kids any parent would be proud of. They worked hard, put themselves through school, and built good lives. Mark works in IT. Hazel's a teacher. They've both been independent for years. Then there's Stacy, my youngest. Stacy has always been different. She's Lana's favorite, and everyone knows it. From the time Stacy was little, Lana spoiled her rotten. If Stacy wanted something, she got it. If she made a mess, Lana cleaned it up. And if Stacy got in trouble, Lana was right there, smoothing it over. When Stacy was a teenager, she'd throw these tantrums if she didn't get her way. I'm not talking about regular teen attitude. I mean full-blown screaming, door-slamming fits that rattled the windows. One night, when she was about 16, she wanted to go to a party the night before a big test. I told her no. "Dad, you're so unfair," she shrieked, tears streaming down her face. "Stacy," I said firmly, "you have a test tomorrow. You can go out another night." She stomped her foot, face going red. "You can't control me." "Enough," I said, trying to keep calm. Then Lana jumped in. "Dean, she's just a kid. Let her go. She needs to have fun. She has responsibilities, Lana," I argued. "She needs to learn that." But Lana shook her head. "One night won't kill her." It was always like that. Every time I tried to set boundaries, Lana would back me off, saying, "She's just a kid. Dean, let her be." It only got worse as Stacy got older. By the time she was in her 20s, she still acted like the world owed her something. For example, when she was in college, she didn't want to work. I sat her down one afternoon at the kitchen table. "Stacy," I told her, "I'll cover your tuition, but you need to get a part-time job for spending money." She promised she would get a part-time job, but every time I asked about it, she had an excuse. "The hours just don't fit with my classes, Dad," she'd say one week. Then another week, the boss was a total jerk. I couldn't stay there. Or, "I'm not going to scrub tables for minimum wage. That's beneath me." It was endless. But then Stacy would show up with brand new clothes or the latest iPhone, and I'd raise an eyebrow. "Stacy," I asked her one night when she was showing off a new designer bag, "how did you pay for that?" She just shrugged. Mom helped me out. One evening, I finally brought it up with Lana while we were cleaning up after dinner. "Why are you giving Stacy extra money?" I asked her. Lana didn't even pause. "She's still figuring things out," she said, wiping down the counter like the conversation didn't matter. "Lana, she's 22. I pressed. "She has to learn to stand on her own." "She will," Lana insisted, her tone sharp. "She just needs some support right now." I let it go at the time, thinking it wasn't worth a fight. But looking back, I realized that was a mistake. After graduation, it didn't get any better. Stacy moved back home and refused to pay rent. The job market is so tough right now, Dad, she'd complain, lying around on the couch scrolling TikTok, while I saw brand new makeup kits and shopping bags pile up in her room. Meanwhile, she went out every weekend like she didn't have a care in the world. Lana, I tried again one night while Stacy was blasting music upstairs. She can't just freeload forever. She needs to contribute if she's living here. Lana sighed and gave me that familiar look, the one that told me she thought I was being unreasonable. She's just trying to find her place, she said. We need to support her. The difference between helping and enabling is getting lost on you, I told her. I'm her mother, Dean, she snapped. We're supposed to be there for her. It was the same argument, over and over. You're not helping her grow up? I tried to reason with Lana. You're just making her more dependent on us. Lana folded her arms across her chest. She's our baby. That's what parents do. One of the worst examples was when Stacy was 17. Out of nowhere, she decided she needed a brand new SUV, fully loaded. I remember sitting at the table, shaking my head. Stacy, you don't have a steady job. You can't afford a new SUV. Stacy crossed her arms and glared at me. Why not? Other kids have them. Lana jumped in immediately, siding with her. She needs reliable transportation, Dean. Lana, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. Do you know what the payments on a new SUV would be? Insurance alone would kill her. We'll figure it out. Lana brushed me off. A few days later, I came home to see Stacy and Lana browsing SUVs online together, giggling like they were shopping for shoes. I put my foot down. This is ridiculous. She can wait until she's financially ready. Stacy sulked, glaring at me like I'd ruined her life, and Lana was annoyed for days. In the end, the SUV never materialized, but it showed me exactly what the pattern was. Stacy wanted something, anything, and Lana would jump to defend her, no matter how unrealistic. And me? I was always the bad guy, the one who crushed Stacy's dreams, the one who dared to look at the bills. That was the dynamic for years. Every time Stacy wanted something, Lana would back her up. And every time I tried to step in with some common sense, I was the villain. I never stopped trying with Stacy. I wanted a real relationship with my daughter. I wanted to help her grow into a responsible adult. But she never saw it that way. To her, I was the one who always said no, while Mom always said yes. Still, even with all of that, I never imagined things would go as far as they did. I thought Stacy was spoiled, sure, but I never thought she was capable of outright manipulation. And I definitely didn't think Lana would ever betray me like she did. It all started to unravel one evening a few weeks ago. I was in my study, going through some old files, nothing special, just routine paperwork, when I noticed Lana's laptop sitting open on my desk. That wasn't unusual. She sometimes used my desk when I wasn't around. But something caught my eye. There was a document open on the screen titled Revised Will. I froze. My heart started pounding as I stared at the title. Revised Will. I hadn't talked to Lana about changing my will. We'd never even brought up revising it. Not since we had it drawn up years ago. So why was there a revised version sitting on her laptop? Against my better judgment, I clicked on it. What I saw made my stomach drop. The new will left almost everything, my business, our savings, the house, to Stacy. Stacy, Mark and Hazel, who had worked so hard to build their own lives, were practically written out. Just token amounts, a couple thousand each, like an afterthought. And at the bottom of the document was my signature. Except it wasn't mine. Someone had forged it. I just sat there, staring at that screen, my mind spinning so fast I felt sick. It was her laptop, her document, her plan. Lana had done this. She'd rewritten my will, forged my signature, and tried to cut out Mark and Hazel to give everything to Stacy. The betrayal hit me like a ton of bricks. My hands were actually shaking as I printed the document out. I slid the pages into a folder, then went and sat down in the living room to wait. I didn't know how the conversation was going to go, but one thing was clear. I wasn't going to let this slide. That evening, Lana came home like it was any other day. She breezed through the front door, set her purse down, and glanced over at me with a smile. Hey, she said lightly, what do you feel like for dinner tonight? I couldn't hold it in another second. I held up the printed will, my voice tight. Lana, I said, do you want to explain this? She froze mid-step, her eyes darting to the paper in my hand. In that split second, I saw the mask drop. She knew exactly what I was holding. Where did you find that? She asked, her voice suddenly clipped and cold. Your laptop, I replied evenly. The better question is why this even exists. What were you thinking? Did you honestly believe I wouldn't find out? She stood there, completely still, like she was deciding if she should lie or try to spin it. Finally, she took a breath. It's not what you think, she said carefully. I was just drafting ideas. I thought we could discuss it. Discuss it? My voice rose. You forged my signature, Lana. You didn't even mention this to me. This isn't brainstorming, it's betrayal. Her expression shifted, hardening, her arms folding tight across her chest. "I wasn't betraying you," she snapped. "I was trying to do what's best for the family. Stacy deserves more than the others. She needs help." I stared at her, stunned. "More than the others?" I echoed, my voice full of disbelief. "Mark and Hazel have worked their asses off to build their own lives. Stacy, on the other hand, has done nothing but take, and you want to reward that." "She's our youngest," Lana shouted back, eyes blazing. "She's had a harder time finding her way. And whose fault is that?" I countered sharply. "Every time I've tried to teach her responsibility, you've swooped in to save her." "She's 25 years old, Lana." I fired back, trying to keep my voice steady. "And she still acts like the world owes her something. And now you're trying to give her everything, at the expense of Mark and Hazel? This isn't favoritism anymore, Lana. This is manipulation." Her face twisted with a mix of anger and frustration. "You've always been too harsh on her," she shot back, her voice trembling. "She's your daughter, Dean. You're supposed to support her." I took a deep breath, fighting to keep calm. "I have supported her," I told her. "I paid for her education. I gave her a place to live. I've covered her expenses for years. But support doesn't mean enabling. And forging my signature to rewrite my will? That crosses a line." Instead of showing any guilt, Lana's jaw tightened, and she doubled down. "You don't understand," she insisted. "Someone has to look out for her. If you won't, then I will." Her words hit me like a slap. It wasn't just about Stacy anymore. Lana was actively working against me, justifying deceit in the name of helping our youngest. I stared at her, my chest tight. This woman I had trusted for nearly 3 decades. She didn't even see anything wrong with what she'd done. "You know what, Lana?" I finally said, my voice calm but cold. "This isn't just about Stacy. This is about trust. And right now, I don't trust you." For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, like she understood how deep those words cut. But instead of apologizing, she turned away and walked out of the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, replaying the conversation in my head, over and over. How did we get here? I kept asking myself. Was this who Lana had always been? Or had something changed over the years? Either way, I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't just sit back and let this slide. The next morning, I called my lawyer, told him everything. The forged will, the signatures, Lana's justifications. He didn't sugarcoat it. "Dean, this is serious," he said bluntly. "If she had filed that forged document, it could have created chaos for your estate. You need to protect your assets immediately." Following his advice, I locked away my original will and every important document I could think of in a secure safe. I also froze any accounts Lana might have access to, just in case. The more steps I took to protect myself, the more real the betrayal felt. My wife, the person I thought I could trust more than anyone, had tried to undermine me. But things didn't stop there. Over the next few days, I noticed Lana acting differently. She spent more time with Stacy, whispering behind closed doors, making phone calls she wouldn't explain. Every time I walked into the room, they'd go silent, exchanging tight, unreadable looks. It felt like there was an entire side of her life I'd never seen before. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized how blind I'd been to the patterns that had been building for years. The worst part was that as angry as I was, a part of me still hoped Lana would come to her senses and apologize. But deep down, I knew this wasn't going to end with a simple sorry. It was bigger than that, bigger than anything I'd ever imagined we'd face as a family. And I had no idea what to do next. Over the next few days, things at home got tense. Lana was quieter than usual, but not in a reflective or apologetic way, more like she was biding her time, waiting for something. She spent almost every evening at Stacy's apartment, claiming they were working on some things. When I asked what she meant, she barely elaborated. And honestly, I didn't press her. I was too angry and too exhausted to keep fighting. Still, the nagging feeling that something wasn't right wouldn't leave me alone. Then one evening, Lana left the house, saying she was meeting a friend for coffee. I didn't buy it. For weeks, these so-called meetups always ended up at Stacy's place. So I decided to follow her. I waited a few minutes after she left, then grabbed my keys and slipped out. Sure enough, her car led me straight to Stacy's apartment. I parked a few streets away and watched. An hour later, Lana came out carrying a stack of papers. My heart sank. I couldn't see exactly what they were, but deep down, I had a pretty good idea. The next morning, I decided I couldn't let this slide another day. When Lana came into the kitchen for her coffee, I didn't give her time to settle. "What were you doing at Stacy's place last night?" I asked. She froze, the coffee mug halfway to her mouth. "What do you mean?" she asked, trying to play dumb. "You know exactly what I mean," I said, keeping my tone calm but firm. "You told me you were meeting a friend, but I saw you leave Stacy's apartment, carrying papers. Care to explain?" Her face flushed, but she recovered quickly. She set the mug down with a sharp clink. I don't have to explain myself to you, she said, her tone defensive. You do. I shot back, when it involves my estate. I know you're hiding something, Lana. If you don't come clean right now, I'll take legal action. For a split second, her composure cracked. I saw a genuine panic flash across her face. Then she crossed her arms and looked at me with a hard glare. You're overreacting, she snapped. Everything I've done is for Stacy. She needs help, Dean. And if you're not willing to support her, then I will. I stared at her, my chest pounding, struggling to even process what I was hearing. So you admit it, I asked. You're working against me to rewrite the will? You forged my signature, and now you're doubling down on this? Do you even hear yourself? She's our daughter, Lana insisted, her voice rising. She struggled her whole life. The other two don't need anything from us. They're fine. But Stacy deserves a chance. A chance at what, Lana? I demanded, throwing my hands up. She's had every opportunity handed to her on a silver platter and done nothing with it. You're not helping her, you're enabling her. And now you've dragged me into this with lies and manipulation. Her expression shifted then, the defensiveness giving way to something sharper, colder. Anger. You've always been too hard on her, she spat. You never believed in her the way I do. All you do is criticize. This isn't about criticism, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. This is about trust, Lana. And right now, I can't trust you. You've crossed a line. I don't even know who you are anymore. She glared at me for a long moment, jaw tight, before turning sharply on her heel and storming out of the kitchen. I stood there, staring at the empty space she left behind, feeling the silence swallow me up. How did my marriage come to this? Later that day, I picked up the phone and called my lawyer again. We need to move fast, I told him, the words heavy in my mouth. Tell me what's changed, he said calmly. I explained what I'd seen, what Lana had admitted, how she'd been carrying those papers out of Stacy's place and refusing to answer for them. He sighed on the other end. Dean, this is more serious than I initially thought, he said. If she's already tried to tamper with the will and is still working on something, we need to act before she does more damage. We arranged for a forensic document expert to analyze the forged signature. Within a few days, the results confirmed what I already knew in my gut. My signature was a fake. Armed with that evidence, I filed an injunction to block any attempts to alter or interfere with my assets. My lawyer also worked with me to secure tighter protections around my accounts and the estate as a whole. In the meantime, Lana's behavior only got worse, or at least more suspicious. She stopped trying to talk to me altogether except for the occasional sarcastic remark, dripping with resentment. Most of the time she was out of the house, and when she was home, she barely looked up from her phone, tapping out endless messages. It was obvious she was scheming with Stacy. I just didn't know what their next move would be. Then one evening, I overheard a phone call that cut me to the core. Lana was pacing in the living room, phone pressed tight to her ear, her voice low and sharp. He's onto me, she hissed. I don't know what else to do. If we don't act fast, it'll all go to Mark and Hazel, and Stacy won't get a dime. I felt a surge of rage and heartbreak in that moment. She wasn't just trying to help Stacy, she was actively plotting to cut out our other children. Mark and Hazel had done nothing to deserve this. Nothing but live responsibly and build good lives. And here was their mother, ready to betray them without a second thought. That night, I took no chances. I locked up the house tighter than ever, moved every important document I could think of into the secure safe, and changed the combination. I even installed cameras around the house. I hated the thought of it, but at this point I couldn't trust Lana to respect any boundaries. The weight of it all hit me hard. This wasn't just about Stacy anymore. It was about Lana's complete disregard for our marriage, for our family, and for everything I had worked so hard to build. I knew things would get worse before they got better, but I was ready to fight for what was right. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything. The realization that Lana and Stacy were actively plotting against me left me reeling. This wasn't just a difference of opinion or a misunderstanding. This was a full-blown betrayal, and it shook me to my core. I spent the next few days going over every detail of my estate, every document, every account, every file. I wasn't taking any chances. My lawyer had been a rock through all of it, guiding me step by step. He assured me, Dean, with the forensic evidence of the forgery and the legal measures we're putting in place, they won't be able to push this through. Then he paused and added, but you need to prepare yourself. If they've come this far already, they're not going to back down easily. He was right. Meanwhile, things at home were unbearable. Lana barely spoke to me, except to toss out the occasional passive-aggressive remark. Stacy, of course, was in full victim mode, practically dripping with self-pity. Sometimes I'd catch bits and pieces of their whispered conversations. He doesn't care about us, Stacy would hiss. Don't worry, Lana would soothe her. We'll figure this out. It took everything in me not to snap right then and there. But I knew better than to let my emotions run wild. The breaking point came a few days later. Lana must have sensed I was locking things down, because she suddenly started fishing for information. She'd ask casually over dinner, "Oh, what time will you be home tomorrow? Or where are you keeping the new financial statements?" I even caught her in my study more than once, rummaging through drawers. "What are you looking for?" I asked sharp. She'd straighten up, playing innocent. "I was just looking for a pen," she'd say. "A pen. Right." I wasn't stupid. One evening, I decided enough was enough. I needed backup. I called Mark and Hazel and asked if we could talk. It wasn't an easy decision. The thought of dragging my kids into this mess made me sick. But they deserved to know. We met over coffee at Mark's house. My hands were still trembling as I laid everything out on the table. "Your mother has been tampering with my will," I began, steady but exhausted. "She forged my signature on a fake document that would give nearly everything to Stacy." Hazel's eyes went wide, shocked. "She did what?" she asked, her voice cracking. "Why would she do that?" "Because she thinks Stacy deserves more than you two," I answered bluntly. "She's convinced herself that Stacy is entitled to everything, even if it means cutting you out." Mark, always the calm and pragmatic one, leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples. "I knew Mom favored Stacy," he said, sighing. "But this is something else." I looked between them, searching their faces, wanting them to understand. "I'm not telling you this to turn you against her," I added, my voice low. "I just want you to be aware if anything happens. If she tries to involve you or manipulate you." I told Mark and Hazel, looking them both in the eyes, "I need you to be prepared." Hazel's face was pale, her hands clenched together, but she nodded firmly. "Thanks for telling us, Dad. I believe she'd do this, but we're with you." Mark reached across the table and put a hand on my shoulder. "You've done the right thing, Dad," he said, steady as ever. "If she's willing to go this far, who knows what else she's capable of." Their support was a relief, but it also brought the truth crashing down on me. Lana and Stacy weren't just a threat to me. They were a threat to the stability of our entire family. When I got home that evening, Lana was waiting for me by the front door, arms crossed, eyes flashing with accusation. "Where have you been?" she demanded, her tone sharp. "I was with Mark and Hazel," I said evenly, refusing to rise to her bait. "I told them everything." Her face twisted in outrage. "How could you do that? You're trying to turn them against me." I took a breath, keeping my voice steady. "No, Lana. You did that yourself when you forged my signature and tried to rewrite my will. They deserve to know the truth." She opened her mouth to argue, but I raised a hand to stop her. "Lana," I said, tired but resolute, "I've tried to talk to you. I've tried to reason with you. But you've made it clear you're not interested in fixing this. You're only interested in protecting Stacy, no matter what it costs the rest of us." Her face turned red, and for a moment, I saw something break in her expression, like she might actually apologize. But instead, she drew herself up, crossing her arms. "If you won't help her," she snapped, "I will. Someone has to look out for her." I shook my head slowly, feeling the last shred of hope inside me crumble. "This isn't about Stacy anymore," I told her, voice low. "This is about trust, and you've destroyed it." That night, I made the hardest decision of my life. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer. "It's time," I told him quietly. "Move forward with the separation." I couldn't stay in a marriage where betrayal and deceit had become the norm. It wasn't just about protecting my assets anymore. It was about protecting my peace of mind and the values I'd spent a lifetime trying to uphold. The next morning, Lana was served with the papers. She exploded, screaming, crying, accusing me of abandoning her and Stacy. I stood my ground, refusing to get pulled into her drama. "This is your doing, Lana," I said quietly, steady as I could manage. "You made this choice when you decided to betray me." She packed a bag that same day, slamming drawers and muttering under her breath, and left to stay with Stacy. When the door closed behind her, I felt a strange, hollow mix of relief and sadness. This wasn't how I had imagined my life would turn out, but deep down, I knew I was doing the right thing. The fallout came fast. Lana and Stacy wasted no time starting a smear campaign, calling family members and claiming I was trying to cheat them out of their rightful inheritance. But I'd already prepared for this. I shared the evidence of the forged will with my close family, laying everything out clearly: the document, the forensic report, every shred of proof. Most of them saw through Lana and Stacy's lies in an instant. The few who didn't? Well, I decided they weren't worth my energy. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was starting to regain control of my own life. But I wasn't naive. I knew Lana and Stacy weren't the type to back down quietly, and I had to be ready for whatever they might throw at me next. The days after Lana moved out were a whirlwind. She went straight to Stacy's apartment, And from there, the two of them launched an all-out offensive. My phone started ringing off the hook. Family members, one after the other, all parroting the same lines. Why are you trying to disinherit Stacy? How could you leave Lana after all these years? Don't you think you're being a little extreme? It was exhausting. Lana and Stacy had spun this story to make me look like some kind of villain, selfish, cold, abandoning my family, and trying to cheat Stacy out of what they called her rightful inheritance. But I was ready. My lawyer and I had already agreed to release the key evidence, the forged will, the forensic analysis, and a clear timeline of what Lana had done if we needed to defend myself publicly. My younger sister was the first to call. I could hear the worry in her voice. "Dean, what's going on?" she asked. "Lana's saying you turned your back on her and the kids. That doesn't sound like you." "It's not," I said, taking a deep breath and keeping my tone steady. "Let me tell you what's really happening." I told her everything. About Lana's secretive behavior, about forging my signature, about trying to rewrite the will to give Stacy everything. By the time I finished, my sister was practically vibrating with anger. "She actually forged your signature?" she blurted out. "Dean, that's not just wrong, that's illegal." "Exactly," I said. "And now she's trying to manipulate everyone into taking her side. I won't let her rewrite the truth." My sister was firm. "I'll talk to the rest of the family," she promised. "People need to know the real story." Slowly but surely, the tide started to turn. Relatives who'd been quick to buy into Lana and Stacy's narrative began pulling away from them. It wasn't about picking sides, it was about the sheer audacity of what Lana had done. Of course, Lana and Stacy weren't backing down. Stacy in particular turned up the entitlement to 11, plastering social media with these vague, passive-aggressive posts about toxic parents and how she deserved better. It was embarrassing, honestly, but I refused to stoop to her level. Then came the ultimate push. Lana and Stacy tried to file a petition, formally challenging the new will. My lawyer called me the moment the paperwork was filed. "Dean, it's exactly what we expected," he said, matter of fact. "They're claiming the new will is unfair and that Stacy is being denied her inheritance." I sighed, bracing myself. "What are our chances?" I asked, even though I had a good sense of the answer. He didn't hesitate. "They don't have a leg to stand on." He assured me the forged will, combined with the clear evidence of tampering, would sink their case before it even got started. "But," he warned, "we'll need to be thorough, Dean, to shut this down completely." I nodded. "I understand," I told him. I wasn't worried about losing the case. What frustrated me was how far Lana and Stacy were willing to go. This wasn't just about money anymore. They were trying to burn down my reputation along with it, to paint me as some heartless monster. It was vindictive, plain and simple. The court date arrived faster than I expected. I sat there in the courtroom, my lawyer beside me, while Lana and Stacy sat across the aisle, heads bent together, whispering furiously. When the judge began reviewing the evidence, the forged will, the forensic report, my lawyer's testimony, it was clear as day that their case had no merit. There was no defense strong enough to stand against hard facts. The judge dismissed their petition outright, and I felt this incredible wave of relief, like a weight lifting off my shoulders. But Lana and Stacy weren't done. As we stepped into the hallway outside the courtroom, Stacy stormed up to me, her eyes blazing. "This isn't over, Dad," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. "You can't just cut me out of your life like this." I looked at her steadily, refusing to be rattled. "I didn't cut you out," I said calmly. "You and your mother made these choices. I tried to be fair again and again, but you've shown me that fairness isn't what you're interested in. This," I gestured around us, "is on you, Stacy." She glared at me with so much hate I barely recognized her, then spun around and stormed off without another word. Standing there, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. For years, I tried so hard to help Stacy, tried to teach her about responsibility, tried to guide her, but it had never been enough. She didn't want a father, she wanted an ATM. And I was finished bending over backward for someone who saw me only as a means to an end. Back home, I began the slow, necessary work of rebuilding. I focused on spending time with Mark and Hazel, who had been my anchors through this entire storm. One evening, Hazel and her husband came over for dinner. After the meal, she quietly pulled me aside while we were clearing plates. "Dad," she said softly, touching my arm, "I know this has been hard, but I want you to know we're proud of you. You've handled this better than I ever could have." Her words landed deep, and I felt my throat tighten. I managed a small smile. "Thanks, Hazel. That means more than you know." It reminded me, in that moment, why I'd made these choices, why I'd fought so hard to protect what I'd built, and to stand up for what was right. After the court case, the dust began to settle. Lana and Stacy lost their challenge, and all their attempts to spin the story to the rest of the family fell flat. Once word got around about the forged will and Lana's actions, most people started to distance themselves from them. A few relatives still reached out to me, disbelief thick in their voices. "I can't believe Lana would do this," one cousin told me over the phone. "It's like she just lost her mind." "Yeah," I sighed, tired of repeating the same details. It happened, but the facts are what they are. I was done rehashing the story. The truth spoke for itself. Lana stayed with Stacy after moving out, but from what I heard, their situation wasn't exactly sunshine and roses. Stacy was struggling to keep up her lifestyle now that she didn't have Lana to funnel money her way. Lana, on the other hand, seemed to have doubled down on supporting Stacy even though it was clearly draining her. I'd catch the occasional update through mutual family or see a passing post online, and it was obvious Lana was stretching herself thin to keep Stacy afloat. A part of me felt pity, but I couldn't deny the frustration that came with it. They dug this hole themselves, and watching them spiral wasn't easy, but it also wasn't my burden to carry anymore. Meanwhile, I poured my energy into rebuilding my own life. The divorce process moved swiftly, thanks to the mountain of evidence documenting Lana's betrayal. The judge granted me full ownership of my estate, and Lana walked away with a settlement my lawyer negotiated. It wasn't the massive payout she'd hoped for, but it was more than fair under the circumstances. When I signed the final divorce papers, there wasn't happiness exactly, but there was relief. A sense of closure, like I could finally breathe after being underwater for so long. My relationship with Mark and Hazel only grew stronger through all of this. They'd been my anchor when everything felt like it was collapsing, and I made sure they knew how much I appreciated it. We started spending more time together, weekend visits, family dinners, even the occasional short vacation. It felt good, genuinely good, to reconnect with them without the constant tension that had hovered over our heads when Lana and Stacy were involved. One evening, Mark came over to help me repair a leaky sink. As we worked side by side, he glanced at me and said, "You know, Dad, I never realized how much you were dealing with until all this came out. You've handled it better than I think I ever could have." I shrugged, tightening a fitting. "You do what you have to, Mark. That's all." "No, seriously," he said, setting his wrench down and looking me in the eye. "A lot of people would have crumbled under that kind of pressure, but you stood your ground. I hope I can do the same if I ever face something like that." His words landed deep. I'd spent so many nights lying awake, second-guessing my choices, wondering if I'd been too strict or too unforgiving. Hearing Mark say that, it reassured me I'd done the right thing, not just for myself, but for the family that actually cared about me. As for Stacy, I decided to let her go. For years, I'd bent over backward trying to help her, trying to teach her responsibility, trying to guide her toward a better path. But this entire ordeal made one thing painfully clear. She wasn't interested in changing, not as long as she had Lana to enable her. I knew I couldn't force Stacy to grow up. That was something she'd have to choose for herself. So I stopped reaching out, stopped trying to fix things. It hurt, more than I could ever really put into words, but it was necessary. A few months after the divorce, I heard through the grapevine that Stacy had tried to manipulate a distant relative into loaning her money. When that didn't work, she started bouncing from job to job, always blaming her bosses or her coworkers for why things didn't pan out. Lana, true to form, kept trying to support her however she could, but even that relationship was showing cracks. I didn't take any joy in their struggles, but I also didn't feel responsible for them anymore. Reflecting on everything, I realized just how much I'd learned from this experience. For years, I'd let guilt and obligation steer my choices, especially when it came to Stacy and Lana. I'd convinced myself, over and over, that being a good husband and a good father meant sacrificing my own needs, my own peace, just to keep everyone else happy. It was a trap, really, one I didn't even see until it was too late. Every time I stepped in to set a boundary, I let myself get guilt-tripped into backing down. Every time I tried to hold Stacy accountable, Lana made me feel like I was being cruel. I carried that weight for years. But this ordeal, painful as it was, taught me something I should have learned long ago. There's a limit to how much you can give before it starts to break you. That line, I realized, is where self-respect begins. As I sit here writing this, I feel a kind of closure I didn't think was possible. My life isn't perfect. There are still wounds that will take time to heal, memories that still ache when I think too long about them. But I'm in a better place now, freer, lighter, and more honest with myself than I've been in decades. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that sometimes the hardest decisions, the ones that keep you up at night, that make you question everything, are the very ones that lead to the most growth. So if anyone's struggling with family conflicts or feeling trapped in a situation they can't control, I want to say this plainly: stand your ground. It's not selfish to protect yourself, it's necessary. Dear listeners, Please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.